No, it was not found as finding a fact in a courtroom that glyphosate is cancer causing or causes non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. In fact, explicitly, the judgment you looked up or saw on the news or saw on a TV advertisement, which by legal definition, even though a person speaking on behalf of lawyers said it, did not include a judgment that glyphosate was a cancer causer because jury. Monsanto developed and patented a molecule they named glyphosate in 1970s. By 1973, this was marketed as Roundup and various other products, along with the other thing they added to it, which is trade secret protected materials. As long as trade secrets exist, you cannot have the evil FDA double check things to make sure you're not hurting people. If you want to get rid of the possibility of the same thing happening, you have to get rid of the legal capacity for having trade secrets. Yes, that means that we're going to be destroying competitiveness and making Trump sad and make him cry. We don't want the FDA regulating things. We just want to make false claims about everything causes cancer because I'm going to be selling my colon cleanse over here because I'm going to make a false claim about that too. It's kind of ironic that snake oil salesmen want the rules to apply to their competitors only. There was limited evidence that occupational exposure to large amounts of glyphosate, such as being in agricultural work or industrial work using it or making it, increased the odds of getting ill or having cancers. But there wasn't any actual evidence or studies done, including by people who were victims of it, and including by activist groups at all, because it would have ended the discussion if you did a scientific, double-blind, peer-reviewed test, because this was the 1970s. Well, we don't have time for it. And 70, 80, 90, 20. That's 50 years. Holy shit, I'm old. That's 50 years. Seriously, I keep realizing I'm over 50. That's 50 years of you guys saying, we don't have enough time to do real testing. Just like Monsanto. Well, we don't have time to do this. There's never enough time. We'll spend 50 years complaining about not wanting to do a 2-year study. And same thing with the activists. If you get cancer at all, doesn't matter what causes it, it's insanely expensive not to die. It becomes an overwhelmingly expensive thing to do, which is wrong. You should just simply say, I'm sick, fix me. Until it gets to the point that there's virtually no chance of you surviving, at which point then you'd have to pay a pretty penny. I don't like the fact that literally not dying is based on your fucking income. But then again, Monsanto. Avoiding doing studies? It wasn't the glyphosate. You have to read between the lines. And if you're an activist about glyphosate, you're not going to listen. You're not going to get anywhere. You've been bamboozled for 50 fucking years, and you wouldn't spend 2 years doing a real study because you knew that you might not be able to prove what you said? Well, it's the glyphosate. No, it's the Roundup. It's in the title of the video. There wasn't any evidence of any kind of harm at all, of any kind. Emphasis added. From home use or domestic gardening or incidental exposure. So, 1986, glyphosate was classified as possibly carcinogenic, but later, due to a lack of statistical significance in the previously examined rat tumor studies, or outright falsification activists, or people just not doing decent science, guys and gals, we learn in high school, actually grade school where I grew up, which is kind of weird, it was a cow town, how to do a scientific study and not fuck it up. How the hell do grown-ass people who want to find out the answer to something concerning something as important as fucking cancer from a product you can buy anywhere? How do you fuck that up? Well, people will bring up the cancer stick industry, cigarettes. But you can independently test it. It's not actually expensive to do that. But it is expensive. No, it's not, because you spent, oh, by the way, it's a little bit longer period of time determining that it caused cancer. Yeah, it was about 50 years. Activists didn't do the testing either. Well, they were actively suppressed. It's a conspiracy. Yes, it really was. The tobacco industry did a conspiracy, and they still do. But you could have done the testing. There was also a conspiracy by oil companies to suppress the fact that we have global warming caused by humans. But none of you activists will actually do a real scientific study to disprove it. You just lie to me in comment sections on Facebook and YouTube. Activists don't solve problems because they're not trying to solve a problem. They're trying to win a fucking argument. Or in this case, get a cancer treatment they can't afford by making a claim that's false and they know it. Glyphosate doesn't cause cancer until you prove it does. Just like water doesn't. Lead causes toxic damage to a person. It's bad for the environment, but people buy bullets with lead in them because they're a better material to fire through a gun. You'd have to really heavily modify how guns are made to fire something like, oh, wait a minute, not really, but yeah. Well, that's different. No, actually it isn't. It's designed to do a specific thing. It kills a specific target, but it has an ancillary effect on the person firing the gun. You get exposed to lead dust unless you have a gun that's made very, very well to make it to where that doesn't have the ability to happen. It needs to press in the rifling into the bullet so it doesn't shred off bits of metal. And it still does. And if you go to a range, the range will be a lead fucking toxicity problem. That's why most people actually prefer to shoot outside. Even though it's going in an environment, it's a lot less dangerous for you. That's not a fair comparison. Yes, it fucking is. Get over it. Anyway, classifying it as Group C possible carcinogen in 1986 was quashed because of lack of studies. It was reclassified as evidence of non-carcinogenity for humans, 1991. What does that mean? It's a Group E? Huh? Why not just not list it because it has nothing to do with the subject? Monsanto, 1996, had made claims that spray on glyphosate-based herbicides that they made, including Roundup, were safer than table salt and practically non-toxic to mammals, birds, and fish. They're environmentally friendly and biodegradable. What they're not saying is maybe it affects insects. What they're not saying is it's obviously toxic, it's just very low toxicity. By the way, the word low toxicity and low toxicity dosage mean the exact opposite of each other. You need to use your words better. Stop using terms that are intentionally ambiguous. So obviously what they were saying by not saying it is it was toxic to something. Maybe bees. They didn't know. They were avoiding doing experiments the same reason the activists were, because they didn't want a definitive answer, because then they couldn't argue. Arguments are not based on finalized reality. Yeah, they are, because people just deny reality. The active ingredient in Roundup, weed and grass killer, only affects plants. Affects? 2002, or excuse me, year 2000, the patent expired, so other companies started using the Monsanto compound. But Monsanto's it became a symbol, and other companies did something that Monsanto had not done. Warning, this herbicide is designed to kill a living thing, plants. Based on this obvious fact, that means it probably has an effect on every other living thing that has similar biological systems. Plants do process oxygen in the dark and produce carbon dioxide, just like humans. It might hurt you. You have been warned. Now you can't sue us. Use at your own risk. Bullets contain lead. Alcohol's bad for you. Cigarettes cause cancer. Dead ass. They just say it on some packages. Yes, this causes cancer. There you go. If you lie about marijuana not being able to cause cancer, you will be sued when you sell it saying it's not cancer causing. Obviously it is. Because a burger's cancer causing. According to the World Health Organization, no, UN, no, the IARC or whatever, everything causes cancer. Coffee is cancer causing. Oxygen causes oxidative stress. So if you don't want to die from oxidative stress, don't breathe. Everything fucking causes cancer if you lower your threshold of what you call a cause. But Monsanto claimed that it was safe as table salt. Really? So it can cause heart problems from too much salt. Anyway, their patent expired. Everybody started making the same thing, but they put a fucking warning label on it. It's still the same level of cancer causing, right? It's glyphosate. Why aren't you suing them? Because they put a warning on it. And the only thing that happened is, I'll tell you ahead of time, the Monsanto case, it's actually not Monsanto anymore, was lost, quote unquote, not really, by deciding that because they persisted for years not labeling the damn thing as technically it's poisonous to plants, so be careful. That's why they lost. What did they lose? They didn't lose whether or not it caused cancer. It's whether or not it could harm you, and it wasn't the glyphosate. 2002, Monsanto scientists wrote an email to a colleague. We're in pretty good shape with glyphosate. We're vulnerable with the surfactants. What we've been hearing from you is that this continues to be the case with the studies. Glyphosate's okay. Our formulated product isn't, and thus the surfactant. It does the damage, or something synergistically with it. And instead of changing the formulation, actually they did, and instead of putting just a blanket warning on it a long time ago, and instead of everybody doing 50 years of just doing a 2-year study and getting it over with on either side because they didn't want a real answer, everybody wanted to be an activist or an asshole. Same thing. It was reclassified in 2007 as dangerous for the environment, toxic for aquatic organisms by the European Union. The organisms in the water were bugs, crayfish, seafood. They said fish were safe. Yeah, but I don't know if you know this, but lobster and crab are more like bugs than anything else. It attacked water-based insects and shellfish, which are very, 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 very related to them. They're very similar. Like, to the point that you can find a really big version of a pill bug in the ocean. They're very similar physiologically, and it caused harm. Yeah, it would hurt bugs. I don't know if it actually got rid of the bees, but that's one of the claims a lot of you make. But they classed glyphosate that way. Or was it Roundup? Remember, they're different. The United Nations World Health Organization, the Interagency for Research on Cancer, IARC, globalist intergovernmental agency, classified glyphosate as probably carcinogenic to humans, like coffee. Again, it was reclassified in 2015 as not likely to be carcinogenic to humans. Again, in 2017, the same thing, again, after being reclassified back and forth 4 fucking times because an activist on the board wanted it classified a certain way. That doesn't mean it's real. That just means a person had a heavier sway that year. Every other year, we get a rule in the United States that we will not fund medical people in other countries if they even talk about birth control, which is dumb. No, it's not abortion. It's just birth control in general. You're not allowed to talk about condoms, or we'll defund you if you're trying to keep people from dying from cholera and spreading Wuhan flu. That's not sane. Neither is the UN. But suddenly you're pro-globalist as a conservative because glyphosate. So anyway, worshippers. Then the Californicators showed up. Oh, Jesus Christ, why? This is the same California that puts a generic warning on everything that says may cause reproductive harm, but doesn't tell you what the fuck it is that does it. This balloon may cause reproductive harm because you can choke on it. No, I'm not kidding. That's one of the reasons they'll label something. Don't ask why. It has to do with something really kinky. Just let's move on. Fucking California. 2017 California environmental regulations listed glyphosate as known to the state to cause cancer because explicitly the above statement that it was possibly or probably carcinogenic was said by the UN. The Californicators literally just do what the UN says. They didn't make a decision. They didn't decide that. They explicitly said, we have no evidence of carcinogenity. We just have evidence that someone said there might be. So we're going to say it dead ass causes cancer. Meanwhile, the Food and Drug Administration, a lot of you hate, should have made a classification. 1,200 lawsuits filed immediately afterwards. Everybody did this. And they also decided in some court cases that instead of having scientists make the decision or the FDA or whatever, or the EPA, let's just have random people off the street in a jury decide it. Bayer acquired Monsanto in 2018. Their stock dropped. To avoid any further problems after somebody else was awarded millions of dollars, There were over 32,000 plaintiffs at one point, so they started awarding a generalized, yes, you can take money from us, but you can't find us guilty, because there's no evidence of this, but we know we're going to get sued over and over. So they set an upper limit at something on the order of $11.5 billion to pay everybody off to shut them up. And yes, that's a Fight Club reference. Thanks for watching. Good day.